Hi, good day. As Renwa said, my name is Jahson. The last time I was here, I spoke to you guys about fish, lionfish in particular. Now I'm speaking to you about something completely different. So, as Renwa said, I'm a general ecologist. These days, I'm primarily marine focused. But in a previous life, probably about, 11, 12 years ago? Yeah. 11, 12 years ago, some friends and I, we studied frogs at one point, right? So it was supposed to have been myself and Lena Dempeville here. Unfortunately, Lena can't make it. Carrie, however, is here. That would be, well, she's not around to call now. But Carrie is here, and if you wish, you could make yourself known, but you don't have to. So basically about 12, so this is a story of, well, I guess new scientists. So 11, 12 years ago, we all graduated. 5 of us, we graduated, as with, well, most of the young folks from university. You want to do something, you don't know what, you're not employed, and you have a job, it's not a meaningful job. Thanks to Perry, actually, there was opportunity from the BP Conservation Program. It's currently called the Conservation Leadership Program. So the BPCP is the same thing as the CLP. Right? So we were one of the first groups out of Trinidad now to have been funded by them. So thanks to Kerry, we were able to apply for this particular grant. Particular requirements with that had to be a young group, developing scientists. Secondly, it had to be in a country that BP operated, so I guess part of that whole social responsibility thing. Thirdly, you had to be working with an endangered species. In our case, we were actually between Chytrid and Mannophryne, and because Mannophryne is in Tobago, we ended up doing this. Alright, so this is what I'm going to focus on. A little misnomer in the name. Even though the name has Mannophryne olmonae, it refers to the bloody bay poison frog, for those who didn't know the common name. It's not actually a poison frog, but that's a common name for it. Well, at the time, these things keep changing. I'm probably going to talk about Mannophryne olmonae and Mannophryne trinitatis. Mannophryne trinitatis would be the yellow-throated stream frog. Right now, stream frog. Trinidad, well, the variations in the name. Regardless, there's a Trinidad version closely related to it. So I'm probably going to be speaking to both of them. Alright? So, amphibians, right? Probably one of the underdogs of the animal kingdom. Scaly skin. Some of them tend to be warty. Skin tongues. Some of them eat pests like cockroaches. I can honestly admit, as a child, I probably killed quite a few of them. They are pests around your home, right? In a human setting, they generally aren't, right? In reality, though, within nature, they serve a fairly important role. Stuff you guys probably know already, as part of pest regulation. So they're very good at controlling some of these same critters, roaches in the natural environment, plant and animal pests, vectors of potential diseases. Right? They're also important, usual in terms of energy transfer. They eat things, things eat them. But more importantly, which was the position, or at least one of the main objectives in our study, was their potential as an environmental indicator. Now, the unique thing about frogs in particular, not so much toads, frogs have smoother skin, frogs have more sensitive skin, toads have coarser skin. They live at a unique interface between two different ecosystems, terrestrial and aquatic, right? We refer to that as riverine, right? So because of that unique ability or habitat preference, it's both vulnerable and sensitive to changes in both ecosystems. So that was part of our drivers, is looking at a potential indicator, environmental indicator. The challenge though, at the time, and still is today, but at the time, the habitat with which the frog was first discovered, and this applies to all biodiversity in Trinidad, so it's not unique to this frog. But habitat loss and fragmentation, I think definitely in recent media we've been hearing about incidences of various chemicals, frothy and colored, being washed down streams. So same in Tobago. intensification of human activities. In Tobago in particular, we have a lot of illegal quarrying, not so much illegal logging. This particular frog itself is found within the main ridge, in some areas where, well, definitely within the last 6 to 7 years in my work in Tobago, I've seen some suspect activities in some of these watersheds. Well, most recently, global warming has become an issue. Global warming, not directly when we started this project, indirectly did have an impact as it pertained to a particular pathogen that we decided to look at afterwards, which I'm going to touch on a bit in a second. Right, so Mannophryne. Mannophryne, as I said, is a frog. It's a stream-associated frog, so you tend to find it in near banks, gravity streams. Well, you find it at waterfalls, not under the heavy water flow, but like on the sides, basically. But in this region, it refers to 4 species. We focused on olmonae, which is endemic to Tobago. At the time, it was thought that the Trinidad cousin, Mannophryne trinidadalis, was closely related. I think later on, I always mispronounce it, Lehmen and Jahson. I think they did some genetic work where they found that the Riveroi species was more closely related to Mannophryne than Mannophryne to trinidadalis. That's neither here nor there at the end of the day, but it's just to highlight that they are within this particular genus. There are 4 species, 2 of which are found here, 2 of which we focused on. Right, 1 endemic to Tobago. 1 you find in Trinidad. I think there are incidences in Tobago, in Venezuela, even though it doesn't show up on this map. At the time, Hardy had done an assessment where the IUCN classed olmonae as a critically endangered species for those various reasons. All right. So again, young scientists, we're just going based on what the IUCN report said. Foreshadowing this presentation, I actually came to disagree, personally, this is just me, I came to disagree with some of Hardy's assessments because of well, in my opinion, the assessment with which he had made these observations was not intense enough to justify the designation of strictly endangered, once you understood the process of discussing it with IUCN as well. But that's foreshadowing this presentation itself. So this is the premise we're going under. We have this endemic frog living in a sensitive environment, faced with various threats, with shrinking adult population, limited geographic range, possible fragmentation, and declining number of adults. Right? So we set out generally to do an assessment of the population structure and habitat of the bloody poison frog, as well as to assess the drivers of environmental change, because while these were suggested, there was no real assessment of the drivers of change. And thirdly, this came a priori, which was after the fact, to assess the prevalence of something called a Chytrid fungus. This is something that had never been looked at before. Now I'm just going to spend a second focusing on the Chytrid fungus, Chytrid or Chytrid, depending if you're American or British, pronounce it differently. So the long word Chytridiomycosis, what it refers to is a particular fungus, right? I always stumble with this word, Chytridium densitatis, right? BD for short, right? There are 2 schools of thoughts on this particular fungus. It's either New World fungus or an Old World fungus, and this is where the whole climate change thing comes in. BD is found everywhere. It's in the soil, right? It's in the soils, it's on plants, etc. One school of thought says that it's an Old World fungus where it's always here, but with climate change, temperatures became a lot more amenable for it to become virulent. The other argument is that it's a New World fungus, meaning that it's something that started recently, and well, I guess climate change is just making things a lot easier for it. Climate change in this case referring to things getting warmer, right? Regardless, it's a highly infectious disease with global impact, such that especially in places like South America, there are quite a few amphibians, quite a few anurans, for example, the poison dart frogs. A lot of them tend to be well, a lot of their populations, at least wherever the chytrid is detected, they tend to be severely negative, significantly negatively impacted by that. So we took the initiative to have a look at this. In fact, this actually came up by chance. There's a chance conversation with someone working on frogs out of Australia who suggested that we look at it. And it just so happened, but foreshadowing the presentation, we found that there is the first record of this particular virus, well, not virus, this particular fungus being found on the native Anaran fauna. Right? Anaran is fancy with frog and toad. Right? So it's highly infectious, mostly found in amphibian species. The interesting thing about this is its life cycle. When the fungus reproduces, it releases spores. The spores themselves, they swim in the water column, right? And well, they'll attach to anything that lives in the water, right? So when you have species like frogs that live in water, they'll attach to the frog. The anaran version or the amphibian version of BD, right, is the only one that actually transmits this chytrid fungus to other species. What that means is, well, two things, or suggests two things. One, the frog can spread it to other frogs directly. Two, the frog can spread it to something else, which in turn can indirectly spread it to other amphibians. Right? And given the nature of how BD is spread, both, well, primarily through the marine environment, but if it infects, well, not, sorry, I said marine because I study marine, through the aquatic environment, if it infects an organism, in this case, Mannophryne, that interfaces both with the terrestrial and aquatic environment, then you increase the range of spread to other anurans, which may not necessarily be riverine or river associated. Right? So we took the initiative. And about this last bit, these are the main characteristics. Well, these are the check boxes, how you identify, well, these are the things you look for in identifying some of the most vulnerable anaran species. So in our case, Mannophryne checked all these boxes. Close association with water, stream-dwelling tadpoles, the Mannophryne, one of the characteristics of it, while the eggs are laid in water, at a particular stage in their development, the males do transport, they do move the tadpoles from that body of water to these rock pools, which usually are not occupied with other tadpoles, but we did observe Mannophryne tadpoles with some other types of tadpoles, chances of some sort of cannibalism there, but we're not sure what's happening there. At least we didn't look at it at the time. Right? Mannophryne met these three criteria. Well, the third one being frequent contact between individuals, especially if you have males interacting with tadpoles, males interacting with females, and vice versa. Right? So, in terms of our approach, again, young scientists, very simple objective, very simple approach. Right? I'm not going to go into this very detail, but there's a lot of visual assessments. We walked along 6 major watersheds. I'll show you a map of that in a sec. 6 major watersheds in northeast part of Tobago. Some of them as long as carry about 12K maybe. Yeah. The distance doesn't matter. That's just for confirmation. But from anywhere between 4K all the way to maybe 16 to 13K. So at 50-meter intervals, we stopped, we did various assessments. If we saw, we recorded the characteristics of the environment. If we didn't see, we still made some recordings, but we were looking both at the organism, at the frog itself, as well as its environment and various anthropogenic stressors or potential anthropogenic stressors. Right? In terms of the frog itself, we mentioned SBL refers to snout, vent, length. Snout, vent, length. Right? Snout, nose, the vents, basically the anus. Sex activity, presence of tadpoles, deformities. This is particularly important as it pertains to the chytrid, because one of the things that you note where chytrid has taken a stronghold amongst the amphibian population is you get deformities in both adults and tadpoles. And especially when you're looking at a species that's potentially indicative of environmental health, and I use the word health loosely, technically you can't have a healthy ecosystem. health antigen. In terms of its value to us engaging the condition or health of the ecosystem, if they're being challenged due to these various deformities, the chances of dying, then they'll not be a suitable indicator. Secondly, that the ecosystem impacts in terms of pest control, as I mentioned before, pest regulation, as well as energy transfer issues. Right, so in terms of where we looked at in Tobago, so this is with respect to Mannophryne, olmonae, right? So 6 major watersheds, so this would be in the middle of Kings Bay, that Roxborough, Bloody Bay, and Doctors River, as well as several other first order type streams. In every watershed along the Atlantic, well, this would be the Atlantic coast here, that would be the Caribbean coast. At every major watershed, we found Mannophryne. In fact, now Hardy's assessment speaks to them being primarily found along first order streams, which we did find in the first order streams. Hardy's assessment speaks to there being very small population, they being very fragmented. And it does exist to an extent, but the thing is, during our assessment, they're fairly ubiquitous. Alright? You have written or concretized drains where you have slow flowing drains where you find them living in those habitats. They just concretized habitats we found them in as well. So it's not just in the forest environment, but non-forested environments with various degrees of development or infrastructure in place. So one of the first things, retrospectively, at the time I didn't recognize this, but retrospectively was that the abundances or the densities were much higher than Hardy's, well, what at least the IUCN reports suggest. What the IUCN did basically, they scaled up his observations to an area. And I understand what could happen there, so it's more of an extrapolation. In the case of Trinidad, we looked at Trinitatis. So when we were looking at olmonae, we said, hey, why not look at Trinitatis as well? So we focused our efforts primarily in the central and northern range. Clearly, most of the effort was in the northern range. We found Trinitatis near everywhere as well. So generally, in terms of our findings, the picture there, that's a male. Characteristic of the male, they're very black. They're smaller than females, but they're jet black, whereas females tend to have color. I think I may have shown some pictures before, but I bypassed that. I may have another one coming up, so you'll see what a female looks like. Yes, but generally we found olmonae in most everywhere we looked. It was fairly abundant, fairly ubiquitous, right? 9 of the males that we found carried tadpoles. That was an observation that I think had been recorded twice before, once by Hardy, the other by Murphy during their assessment, so we support that observation. In terms of population itself, comparing Trinitatis and olmonae, now this could be a question, well, let me explain this first and then contextualize it. So we found, well, just 3 more olmonae than we did Trinitatis. We found a lot more females than we did males. For those of you, I assume you guys know already, for those who don't know, symbol is male, that symbol is female. So we found loads more females than we did males. But that could also be a function of the camouflage of the males. The males were jet black, alright? They like to hide in crevices and they get very quiet when you approach. Alright, so it took a lot of patience doing this exercise, waiting for them to get accustomed to you before they start calling. The females were a lot more social. We would see them jumping all over the place. But secondly, the juveniles, is very hard to say the difference between juvenile and female. Alright, so within our female counts, there could have been juveniles in there, but visually you couldn't tell the difference. You recognize that. Regardless, though, you clearly have fewer males in both of them during our observations. Right? The main takeaway from this is that Trinitatis get bigger than olmonae. Right? That's the main takeaway from this whole thing. Right? What I want to focus on really, some habitat preferences. Generally, in terms of calling, we tend to find more single males calling than multiple males. Again, this speaks to them being territorial organisms. It could also be a function of our presence as well, we being there to scare away groups of them, various core sizes. They tended to stay closer to the water. Again, that could have been a function of us being there. We did notice an escape response every so often. They would jump into the water and then they would swim away. That would protect in the water. We lost sight of them very quickly, so we had to be very quick to try and catch them as well, as gently as we could. I'm not going to focus on this either, just some characteristics of the pools that we found, olmonae, both adults and tadpoles. Nothing significant stood out, but just in terms of characterizing the environment. Probably the main take-home, though, however, was the Chytrid or Chytrid assessment. So we focused on Mannophryne, but there were other species of frogs there as well. So we took a chance, we swabbed those as well. We swabbed olmonae, we swabbed Chytridiomycosis, and we had some other incidental captures of of about 4 other species. Before, this would be the cane toad. So this would be a toad, all the others are frogs. And generally, we found, in Tobago anyway, we found Chytrid, right? We found very strong response using PCR on either side of the watershed. So in terms of the geography of Tobago, it's a large main ridge. It's a physical barrier. This is a frog with a narrow home range. It does not travel hundreds of kilometers, right? So in terms of the connectivity or the chances of connectivity between populations on the Atlantic side versus, the Caribbean versus the Atlantic side, due to migration of the species, is very slow. It's very slim. Another means of connectivity, however, could be via the flow of water, the flow of water through the watersheds. But the geography, again, it's a main ridge, right? It's very steep, all right? Water on the southern side of the main ridge, it flows into the Atlantic. On the northern side, it flows onto the Caribbean. All right. So either through independent introductions or some other mechanism, we got very strong positive signals for the Chytrid fungus, both on the south and the northern side. In both cases, associated with human development. Right. Coastal communities, basically. Right. The most important thing that we noted, though, granted we found the Chytrid fungus here, we did not note any clinical manifestations, right? What that means is the malformations that we were looking for, we didn't see anything. It suggests that these frogs might be more vectors for the transmission of it, as opposed to being negatively affected by the fungus itself. So maybe that still has SOAP as being an environmental indicator, but it also poses a threat to spread the pathogen to other more sensitive species of anurans. Right? Just highlighting the areas in Tobago where we got positive and negative. So the black would be negative, the red would be positive, and for those of you who can't see, the yellow arrow is just highlighting where the positives are. So this one here would be near the village of Bayside, that would be near the village of Argyle, Roxborough, and that would be in Campbellton, which is just after Charlottesville, which you guys are going to shortly. Right. In terms of Trinidad, we found fewer positives, but they are here. Right? I think we only got 2 positives in 2007, and then we got 8 positives later on, so basically in watersheds and a repo. We never did a follow-up on this. There have been several frog groups, that have passed through. I know the last group and a couple others, they do some more Chytrid screening. I know they've done a fair amount in Trinidad. I'm aware of a screening done last year before. I'm not sure whether they detected any, but I know they wrote a paper suggesting that it may or may not be here because they didn't find anything. But I do know people are still looking for it. Well, from this assessment, people are looking to see whether it's in other frog species. Right? So, in summary, it was our opinion, in terms of olmonae, it's fairly widely distributed. Right? So unlike its original assessment, or one of the reasons for it being designated a critically endangered species was because of limited habitat range, the habitat is limited, yes. It's limited in the sense of basically northeast Tobago, within the main ridge, within forested environments, but it's a lot wider, or at least the densities are larger than we previously thought. They found in most watersheds that we've looked at little differences in sizes between the male and female. Low numbers, well, yeah, the last bit, low numbers of males calling probably a function of our presence. But most importantly, as a result of the work that we had done, so us establishing a larger population size, a larger extent, was justification was to bring it down even lower than vulnerable. But because it's a vector for the Chytrid fungus and potentially a threat to other species, it's been maintained, well, not maintained, it's designated as vulnerable now as a result of the work that we've done. Right? Even though it doesn't exhibit any clinical signs of any malformations on frogs, in adult frogs or tadpoles. And that's it in summary. Right. So it was a very simple exercise, no big science, but it did have a small impact in terms of how we view these species. At the end of this, the idea, and I can't remember her name, it was Pat something at the EMA at the time.
Yeah.
She was one of our biggest supporters. No, not Chytrid. Whatever her name is. It was at a time where sea turtles weren't even designated in ESS. I don't think we had the stable wing because I think the Deco was still studying that. You hadn't studied the Powie as yet. So I'm not sure how many ESSs we had at the time, but there was even a push from within the ENA side to try to identify suitable environmental indicators. Well, for this type of habitat. So that was one of the drivers behind it. And we did make set recommendations, but nothing ever really came out of it. At the end of this exercise, the group itself, while we did have interest in continuing ecological work, I think we started doing different things. Some of us went on to bird work, others went on to marine, others did different things. Alright? Following on from this, though, Lane and myself, we did continue similar research with the golden tree frog. Limited successes with that, just because of the scarce numbers of those that you can find. I know subsequent groups are doing work on golden tree frog. But that's been the sum total of our work on a project we started, on the impact project we started some 11, 12 years ago. Alright, with that, thank you.